You're welcome to the pulse here on Joy News. Get interactive with us via our social media handles. We are on Facebook Live, we are on YouTube Live, we are on X Live, and of course, we are live also on myjoyonline.com, plus other satellite televisions from around the world. Now, the Speaker knows nothing about it. The minority knows nothing about it. And the Transport Ministry, which sponsored it, won't even defend it. That's how unpopular a legislative instrument that allows MPs, ministers, and judges to mount sirens on their vehicles and drive without any limit to speed they can go has been. Some Ghanaians have described it as unquestionable, unreasonable, and unnecessary. We'll hear from them shortly. First, though, let's bring you that announcement in Parliament.
Honorable Member, Mr. Speaker, I raised the matter. But you haven't caught my eye. You just presume you have already raised your issue. You've raised your issue. Mr. Speaker, the leader of the House hasn't quoted a single standing order. He hasn't. Honorable Member. Mr. Speaker, let me rebut. I'm giving my ruling. Please, the bell is ringing. So we look at it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Right, Honorable Speaker. Leader, please. No, please. He has done the right thing. A process has been triggered. And you have really accepted that the process must be followed with our own standing of the Order 64. And that's what you are doing. The leader should be guiding us. Our respected leader should be guiding this House to tell us to throw our own standing order into the bin. When somebody raises a quorum, 10 minutes so that wherever anybody is, he can come back. And that's what we should be saying. So the right Speaker, you're on the right track. We can go back to work and wait for the 10 minutes.
Yes, leader.
Mr. Speaker, I won't litigate this matter. I won't litigate. Mr. Speaker, that you must apologize to me. Leader, you must apologize to me. We'll discuss our matter at the coffee bar. We'll discuss at the coffee bar. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable... Yes. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister for Local Government has a matter of national importance for us. Mr. Speaker, it's in respect of a subsidiary law that has been laid in this House following certain processes that were followed through pre-laying and the subsidiary legislation committee having done some work. So, Mr. Speaker, with your leave, the Honourable Minister would have the floor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But, Honourable, I think we discussed this at the pre-sitting.
You see, Mr. Speaker, the respected leader was not at conflict. The understanding we had with you, the whips will raise the issue which is of a very important public interest currently. After that, the side opposite can take a decision as to whether they yield to the House request that a certain decision should be taken. Then we come here, then it's been done in a different way, Mr. Speaker. That is not helpful to you sitting in the chair.
Mr. Speaker, with respect, my respected colleague knows how I respect conclave decisions. I would not unilaterally come and vary matters. However, it became prudent for the Minister of Local Government to initiate so that what was agreed could be carried. I really apologize if that has given a wrong signal. Mr. Aguja, governance, please. You know I would ordinarily not vary, but I felt that it would be prudent for the minister to take the initiative. Then you do what you have to do. I'm sorry about that, but really, it's not out of any disrespect. Mr. Speaker, you may grant the minister the opportunity.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that the road traffic amendment.
So, honorable member, seek the leave first.
That's what
You did, okay, okay. So, Minister, move on. Leave granted. So, Minister, you can.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to move that the Road Traffic Amendment Regulation 2024, which was laid on the Friday, 14 June 2024, be withdrawn. Mr. Speaker, this has become necessary based on extensive engagement with leadership. It is so withdrawn, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honorable members, I think this is a simple matter. Government brought the legislation. It has decided to withdraw. And therefore, I think, I just want to give the opportunity to the leaders alone. So, Honorable Whip.
Mr. Speaker, we shall always work, if you are the one in the chair, with you and follow up on the understanding we have at conclave to make work in the chamber orderly. What we discussed at conclave is not what has just taken place. And Mr. Speaker, in the future, if you witness conclave and a decision is taken, and it doesn't suit us, our side, and we decide to do what suits us, I hope, with your kind respect, you will not be surprised.
Honorable, don't.
Mr. Speaker,
I don't think. I don't think
you knew this is not what we decided. The comment, I cannot repeat the comment that was made at conclave. So, Mr. Speaker, they have decided that an issue of national interest is not good looking on Parliament, especially government, and they have decided to withdraw it. Mr. Speaker, we have no business talking about it, but I can just remind them, there are other allies that have been laid that the public is still not happy about. I will encourage them to withdraw those ones as well. Mr. Speaker, whilst the Minister of Trade is here, the ally that he laid on cement is also not, the public is not happy. We also come and withdraw yours as well. Come and withdraw the cement ally as well. Come and withdraw the cement ally as well.
Yes, Honorable Majority Whip.
Speaker, let me say that indeed it's a human institution and we are humans. So my colleague should just be calm. These things happened and let's make progress. I think that I want to commend leadership. Early in the morning, I engaged my colleague and other leaders also came in express same views, that there's a need for us to do the needful. I'm just a bit, even in commending them, I'm a bit disappointed that my respected minority leader had to issue a statement on same subject matter. I think it would have been in good taste if that statement had not been issued. Maybe I'll leave it there. So when we agree to do something, Kwame, you see, you were a while ago lamenting. A while ago you were lamenting that we appear to have been doing things differently from prior agreements or conclave. But even when we had a gentleman discussion and agreement, we had a statement being issued out of the blue, which is not in good taste. Speaker, I wouldn't want to litigate on this matter, and I wouldn't want to drag this matter further. The minister had done the needful. I'm sure in days to come, they will get back to us. And then we can take a better appreciation of the ally. If the need be for us to do some amendment, we can engage further and do same.
Well, earlier, the minority issued a statement directing all 8 members to reject the LI. Murtala Mohammed, Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, is joining me in the studio for more on this shortly. Before that, though, let me take a look at what the Transport Ministry presented to Parliament, which has since been withdrawn by the Minister for Local Government Rural Development. I'm sure he did so on behalf of the Transport Minister. So he was seeking to amend the road traffic regulation. And part of it says that a siren or bell may be fitted as a warning appliance and used on the following classes of motor vehicles. Motor vehicle used for official purposes by the head of state, which has already been done, the vice president, the speaker of parliament, the chief justice, ministers of state, justices of the Supreme Court, and members of parliament. And then Regulation 74 of LI 2180, which was seeking an amendment in Parliament. A police service vehicle also included, a motor vehicle used by the Ghana National Fire Service, a motor vehicle used by the National Ambulance Service. And it goes on to say that an ambulance used by a hospital or clinic, a bullion vehicle registered by the licensing authority, or a motor vehicle, if adherence to those provisions may hinder the purpose for which the motor vehicle is being used. And then also, operating a self-driving motor vehicle requires a self-driving motor vehicle operator's license. So I guess these are also part of the amendment. But of interest to the general public was the fact that some individuals are going to enjoy some privilege, if you like, privileges, which affording to them wasn't right. And for that reason, started piling pressure. And the minister, obviously acting on behalf of government, withdrew the LI, that's the legislative instrument that was seeking some amendment to the road traffic regulations. All right, so this did not find favor with the public. Let's hear the views of some Ghanaians who have been speaking to my colleague, Suti Abochi, on the streets of Accra.
The Ministry of Transport has laid a legislative instrument in Parliament, which is not yet a law, but in 21 days will become a law. And this legislative instrument seeks to give ministers, members of parliament, and some members of the judiciary free access on our roads. What does this mean? This means that they have the liberty to use sirens and horns and green or blue lights every day on our roads. They can drive without speed limits. And they're saying that this is because the work of parliament and ministers is important, and the traffic situation slows down the efficiency. But we are here in Accra, specifically in Circle, and want to understand what the citizens think about this. Joining me right now is a gentleman. Please tell me your name and tell me what you really think about this LI.
My name is Gideon. I think this LI should be given a second thought. There should be a broader stakeholder consultation. Why? Because currently I know there's a provision which allows emergency situations to have a motorcade just to clear the road. And for them to pass this bill to have a free access and drive without any speed limits, it's rather something we should be looking out for if we really care about our safety. They are rather going to cause chaos on the road rather than making us good. Okay. As much as we believe that their work is very important, their lives is also at stake. And driving in such conditions probably will not. And this thing will not keep on reducing. The traffic will keep on increasing. So therefore, we should rather look at the root cause, why the traffics are becoming jammed on the road, and find a better solution to it than giving them this absolute go ahead.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. But that's not all. Right here, we also have another group of people here who want to share their thoughts with us. So, gentlemen, thank you. Thank you for speaking with us. So this new legislative instrument, when passed or when it eventually becomes law, it means members of parliament, ministers, in fact, they say all Article 71 office holders, which is the president, all the way down to ministers of state and chairmen of various boards, will have free access to drive without speed limits and to use or to fit sirens in their vehicles as a way of clearing everyone from the road, because their job is important. They need to get to those jobs on time. What do you think? I'll start with you.
I don't really think that this is going to be in our interest or anything, because all the traffic control regulations that have been put into place are just to ensure road safety, like measures to enhance road safety on our roads. And having people move out of the way, because, and as you said, there is no speed limit also placed on this. And we don't really know if the person is even going to work in the first place. We don't even know if the person it's an emergency, it's a case of critical emergency that the person needs to attend to. So I don't think it's in our own interest, because as far as I'm concerned, there are many Ghanaians who also rush to go to work, also rush to emergencies and other things. What about them? What about the ordinary Ghanaian? Nobody is above the law. Let us all just be in the traffic. Because as far as you know, a traffic light can be red here, you move past the speed limit, there's also another traffic there. So what if you go and collide with another car?
So what do you think?
Yeah, to add to my colleague here, I think it doesn't fit well with what we go through every day, especially on Mondays when there's traffic jam. So just because a person works under the government doesn't mean he or she should have a right pass. Like, you are not important than any of us just because you are under the government. So I don't think it's best fit for any of us.
But this LI has been laid, though, gentlemen, and I'll let you go in a bit. It has been laid. So what can we do about it as citizens? Because as we speak, the legislative instrument has been laid in Parliament, and it will take 21 days for it to become law. What can we do?
Well, it's Ghana. We ride on peaceful country. So even if it's right or it's not right, the illiterate and the illiterate, we just go with it. What we can do is they should think about it first before implementing it. But since it has already been implemented, this is my first time hearing it. So if I didn't meet you guys today, I wouldn't have known about it, but it will be working. So it's Ghana. We don't really get to say anything before it's implemented. They just give it to us any day they like.
Actually, I don't think it has been passed yet. It's still in the process of discussion and stuff. But I think that one key in good governance is, as we have established that Ghana is a democratic country, one key thing in governance, good governance, is if the government also pays attention to the media. And I think that the people have aired their opinions. And if only the government is going to pay attention to whatever we've said, they can withdraw that bill. Because it's for our own interest. Just pay attention to the kind of roads we have in Accra, how narrow they are. How are they going to space out in the first place? Yeah, and look at the cars that our government officials are using. V8, very big cars, broad cars. So what if, by mistake, peradventure, you are in a haste or in a hurry to get to a meeting or a function, and you just crash someone's car? You just move. You don't even pay attention to, So you stop. So I think that they should also, the media is going about airing the opinions of the ordinary citizen or the ordinary Ghanaian. For good governance sake, they should hear the pleas or the cries of the ordinary Ghanaian and also withdraw that bill or whatever it is.
So listen to the cries of the ordinary Ghanaian. That's what they're saying here on the streets at Circle. For Joy News, I'm Sweetie Abochi.
So you may look at this as a belated interview, but the point has been made. They wanted the bill withdrawn, the LI taken off the table of Parliament, and it's been done. Now, in the studio with me is the Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Murtala Mohammed. Murtala, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Right, it's very good to see you. It's been a while since we had this one-on-one.
You're looking good.
Exactly, you're looking good too. All right, so we're going to have a very exciting conversation on this matter, and of course, the MP, and whether or not our MPs are being taken care of. We'll look at all that as well. But let me understand what went on in Parliament today. And Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent Kwaku Asante joins me via Zoom. Kwaku, you're welcome. Yes, Kwaku, if you can unmute for me.
Yes, Elton.
Right, so, I mean, this was laid on the 14th of June. The understanding is that the pre-laying was done. So it was laid because both sides, at least from the point of view of the subsidiary legislation, they understood and accepted the LI. That's the reason why it was laid. And now today, it appears to me that everybody ran away from this particular LI and then had to be withdrawn.
Yes, Elton. In fact, we are getting to learn some more facts. The facts are that when the Transport Ministry did present this LI to Parliament, the specific provisions that included members of Parliament, judges, and ministers having to use LIs, sirens, and driving without speed limits were actually not included. In fact, it is Parliament, the subsidiary legislative committee, that recommended to the Transport Ministry to include all these before they will allow it to be laid. The pre-laying stage did go on. In fact, that is the facts that we are getting from videos from the day that this LI was laid. The Transport Ministry clearly had another intention for which reason they wanted to amend this LI, and they came to Parliament for that purpose. They did have a conversation with the Subsidiary Legislation Committee, who then recommended to them that this be done. Then this LI, as we now know, went to the Attorney General's Department, which gave it a clean bill of health that well. If Parliament did insist that all these other persons should be included in the LI in terms of they being allowed to also drive without speed limit, then that should be done. The Attorney General did then write to the Subsidiary Legislation Committee clearing that this LI now be laid. So that is the fact. Tracking back to 14th of June when this LI was laid, the pre-laying had been done. The Transport Ministry did not include the impugned provisions It was the subsidiary legislation committee chaired by NDC MP Dr. Dominic Ayine, which allowed that this LI be made. Also, just this morning.
So basically, you are saying that the provision that relates to members of parliament and ministers were smuggled in. It was not part of the original LI.
Well, smuggled in will not be the exact word, because they actually did speak to the transport ministry during the pre-laying stage. What has now become the pre-laying, where before you lay the instrument, you talk to the committee to try and get the understanding of why exactly you are putting this before the House. Dr. Dominic Ayine and his committee, probably with the blessing of leadership, did indicate to the transport ministry that they wanted to include some part of all this. The transport ministry then went back to the Attorney General Department, which drafted this, of course, because of the constitutional provisions that the Attorney General Department is the principal legal advisor. They offered that blessing that while the Parliament insists that ministers, MPs, judges should all be included in this LI so that they can be drive without speed limit. Because we have cited a copy of that LI that came to Parliament. It did not include those provisions. It was later on that Dr. Dominic Ayine and his commission did make that recommendation to the Transport Ministry, which then obliged. The committee went back to the Attorney General Department. The Attorney General did then approve that they should come to the House, and then it was laid on the 14th. In fact, if you look at the specifics of the original law that I've referred, none of the MPs, ministers, and judges were included. It was the president, the head of state, the vice president, ambulances, and other such officials that will be designated at the appropriate time, which were allowed. Elton, again, in fact, this morning, the Speaker of Parliament was in Legon and then denied categorically that nothing of this sort was before Parliament. This was despite the fact that this LI had been laid on the 14th of June in Parliament. And in fact, if you track back to 14th of June, guess who was sitting in the chair when this LI was laid? The Speaker of Parliament himself, Alban Bagwin. He was the one in the chair. And in fact, there was so much back and forth. This was not an LI that was laid surreptitiously. It was laid with the full knowledge of both leaders on the House.
And yet today, the Speaker is saying that he is unaware or was unaware at the time that the LI was laid.
Yes, that is what he said in Legon when he was speaking about private members' bill. When I think members of the public there asked questions about this controversial LI, then he offered an understanding that nothing of that sort was before the House. That was clearly erroneous.
Yet Kwaku, he was in the chair on this particular day.
Yes, 14 June, it was Alban Bagwin, the Speaker of Parliament himself, that was sitting in the chair. Let me tell you the chronology of events that day. The majority chief were called for that LI to be laid. The minority raised concerns that certain pre-laying conversations were still ongoing, but the majority still wanted the minister to lay the LI. And then Governor Kwame Agboja then stood up, he's the minority chief whip, and informed the House that Dr. Dominic Ayine, who is the chairman of the subsidiary legislation committee, had indeed offered to them leadership that the conversations they were having at the pre-laying stage had all been cleared up and that the minister should be allowed to lay the LI. Then the chairman of the committee himself stood up, explained all that had gone on, the insertions that he had asked the ministers to make, the insertions having been now made, the Attorney General having written to them and giving them the blessing. And then the Deputy Transport Minister, Santampuli, who laid the LI on that day, was also on the floor. He also offered certain clarifications. And then this was laid. The Speaker of Parliament, in videos that will be showing in the bulletin subsequently and all that, the Speaker of Parliament himself banging the gavel and announcing that the Road Traffic Amendment Regulation 2024 has been laid. So it is not true that the Speaker of Parliament claimed today that nothing of that sort was before Parliament and that Parliament was not aware. Parliament indeed was aware, and he was in the chair that day.
But even granted that perhaps maybe events of that day may have contributed his recollection of events, subsequent to that, there's been official report of that particular day's proceeding. So anybody who is taking time to peruse that report will come to understand that indeed this was laid, and these are the people who are on the floor or who participated in the business on that particular day.
Well, yes, clearly the official report would have bear the mark. And of course, Parliament videos from 14 June, beaming live, it's still on Facebook, it's still on YouTube. Anybody who wanted to check it could do. The Speaker of Parliament also did go ahead to say that he has even checked from his directors and certain senior officials in Parliament, and that nothing of that sort was before the House. That was clearly erroneous. And as we have established now, the LI was laid on the 14th of June. If not for the public backlash, would have matured into law on Friday. That is, the 21 sitting days would have arrived on Friday, and that LI would have become law. Elton.
Santi, thank you very much. Let me just also bring in Nanaya Akwada, who may have issues with this. Nanaya, you're welcome to the pause.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. So, what is your problem with MPs and ministers being allowed to use siren in the conduct of the official business?
Well, very well. I think that we did say that our problem is not allowing MPs, ministers, and justices of the Supreme Court privileges on the road. Mm-hmm. Our problem is allowing them privileges within the context of best practices and within the context of our own road experience. Best practices the whole world over, okay? Their counterparts are going to work in buses and on bicycles, and sometimes some of them are walking. Number two, best practices across the whole world. Sirens, strobe lights, and exemptions from speed limits apply only to emergency services, i.e. law enforcement and medical emergency services and other emergency services. There is nowhere in the world that I have seen where it is grounded in law for such mass number of people to be exempted from speeding.
There are just 275 MPs.
And in excess of that,
and most of them are actually ministers as well.
275 plus 80 or up to 126 or more ministers, roping them into this. It doesn't happen anywhere in the world. We live in a country where research is pointing to speeding as the number one causal factor for road crashes. So if we are going to amend our road act, we should be seeking to reduce or put in measures that's going to get people to reduce their speed and not to exempt people from speeding. So we were against this on three grounds of public safety, best practice, and the third aspect is the chaos that is going to bring on our roads. And I think that if indeed this has been withdrawn, it is okay. We are looking back to welcoming that amendment because there are some good things in there. We want to welcome that amendment back as soon as possible without the members of parliament, ministers of state, justices of the Supreme Court, the Speaker, and the Chief Justice. All of them should be expunged from there. The best practice across the world, whenever these guys need to attend to emergencies, is to call for police escort. And I think that is decent enough, and Ghanaians can actually accept that.
So the LI is now off the table. We don't know whether it will come back or it will come back in its original form. But our MPs and ministers need some kind of protection on the roads. So how do we guarantee them that?
Well, I don't know who said our MPs and ministers need some kind of protection. In the first place, everybody on that road needs protection. Mm-hmm. Okay? Secondly, and it is the job of the ministers and the MPs to work that protection to be intrinsic to our very system. Years back, for many, many years, people, ordinary persons going about their normal businesses, traveling to buy goods and stuff across the world, across the country, were being harassed by armed robbers. They were being killed by armed robbers. The state put in efforts that did not really yield so much until an MP was killed by armed robbers while he was in transit. May his soul rest in peace. And I don't really in any means try to belittle the life of an MP. But when he was killed, what did we see? Immediately, we had the House of Legislature ganging up together and assigning to themselves one policeman per MP for close body protection. You and I don't have that kind of close body protection, yet we wake up at dawn in order to beat the traffic to arrive at work and risk it all.
Because you and I have given them certain responsibilities, and I'm guessing that such responsibilities should go with some kind of privilege. Don't you agree with me on that score?
Giving them loans with whether flexible interest or interest-free loans to buy vehicles are some privileges that we are according them, isn't it? So we give them responsibilities and they have to work. We are giving them what they need to work. We cannot grant further responsibility that seek to make them check out of the system. Because if the road is choked, it is their responsibility to make sure the road is cleared.
Right.
We cannot check them out of the road and then we will come and stay in the road. How do we pay our taxes? How do we take care for our families? So they need to experience the system in order to make it work for all of us so that we can continue to pay our taxes, get them sorted out, to also take care of their the responsibility that they need to take care of. The
Right.
whole world
Right.
over, people who need, important people in government who need access, quick access, fall on law enforcement agencies for police escorts.
I understand
and that
you.
is what
I understand
the Ghanaian
you.
must respect.
Thank you very much, Nana Akwada, for your intervention on this matter. You're clearly on the side of some of the Ghanaians who spoke on the streets of Accra. So, Mutala, you've heard Nana Akwada. You've heard those we interviewed. What is your position on this matter? Perhaps you have a reaction that we can deal with the substantive matter.
Well, first and foremost, very interesting submission. But I think that it would be important for me to state.
Absolutely.
One, I have never used a siren. You know, I've had the privilege to be a deputy minister of state before for 4 years. As a deputy minister of state, I never used a siren. Not once, not even once. I have never used that. I used to travel. You know, as the Deputy Minister for Trade, I used to travel very often, particularly when we were working on expos around the world. And I was always using the ordinary place Ghanaians were using at the dismay of many, you know, passengers, why I wasn't using the VIP. So I have always lived that. I never had a driver driving me as a Deputy Minister, not a single driver was I assigned to drive me. It was a choice I took. I never had a police officer following me anywhere.
As a deputy minister?
Not even once. If anybody has any evidence, that person should show it. You know, as a deputy minister for 2 years, I was staying at Capri for 2 years. You know, so I took a decision. So I have every moral leg to talk on this matter. He made certain statements that are factually not accurate. He said the best practice globally is that MPs go to work through trains and buses. That is not true. Even in the United Kingdom, you find some MPs, few MPs, 1 or 2, who will sit in the train. That is not to say that I don't support the position they have taken. My position is that it is important this particular ally is withdrawn. So I'm on the same page with him. But on the matter of best practice, because he used that, he has a responsibility to inform, and it should be properly informed, you know, your viewing public. When he says that best practice is that all over the world, MPs go to work with buses, that is factually not accurate. MPs drive their cars to Parliament. Some use buses, some use trains. But that is where those things are very effective and efficient. And I agree with the point he made when he said, look, MPs should all work, politicians should work to ensure that we have these things being reliable, efficient, effective, so that everybody can use. Let me also state, the impression should not be created as if MPs don't pay taxes, because I hear this time and again. But I also want to state, I'm a politician, I'm not corrupt. I have never been, and I will never be. I've always stated it. As a deputy minister for 4 years, let someone come or even privately say that I've ever given Mutala 1 cedi for the purposes of executing a job. But the point I'm making is that we have agreed to democratize. And as part of the democratic principle, you have agreed to give MPs some extra responsibilities. Those responsibilities are supposed to be executed so that we account to the people based on how well we have executed those responsibilities. My point is, when it is abused, that is where I have a challenge. But I'm coming. The reason why this ally, and it's important I state this, I was not even aware of the ally. When I heard it, I was shocked. Why would you want to have an ally where you will give MPs and judges the right to use siren and other things? I guess the ally was seeking to put a fine on those who are not supposed to use the siren.
And are using it?
Yes, I'm in opposition. But I think that ministers of state, the president and the vice president, if they use it under some circumstances, it makes a lot of sense. You can have problems with the MPs, and I agree absolutely with judge, even some Supreme Court judges. Let's say, for example, a Supreme Court judge, considering the huge traffic we have, who is supposed to attend to a program, maybe attend to court and then he's late. That is not to justify this. I support the removal of the ally. But for us to stretch it, as if, no, nobody is supposed to. He is even saying that both the president, said the vice president, and then the MPs and ministers, they should be withdrawn. Under some circumstances, you would find it extremely, difficult for ministers. But MPs removal, I support it. Right. The removal of it by judges. But I think that we need to look at it.
Of course, we're going to chew more on this matter. But it's a member of parliament for Tamale Central, Murtala Mohammed. So Murtala, I mean, you have established the point. Now let's move forward. So, from what Koko Asante told us, our parliamentary correspondent, the original LI did not include members of parliament
and judges.
And judges. Yeah. So, at what point did that find expression in the LI?
Before I say that, I think that the gentleman you interviewed, the last person, he made a very fantastic point, which I agree absolutely with him, that, look, we can have the police who have the authority to use siren as and when the need for you as a minister of state or even a member of parliament to use the siren, you can look for. And for me, that has always been my position. Assuming that a minister was supposed to come for this program or a member of parliament to inform people, to help provide information for Ghanaians. And that same person is supposed to attend a program which he is supposed to execute as a politician. And he can look for the police just for him to be able to meet the time. Because we live in a country where, and I agree with him, that our traffic is, the regulations and traffic itself is terrible.
Absolutely.
It's terrible. If you travel to Lagos, you'll be shocked. Sometimes within Lagos, 1 hour travel, you spend about 4 or 5 hours. So it seemed to be a problem. That is not to justify the use of the siren, because I agree it's been abused. It's been abused hugely. So if it is that the ally, for me, in terms of the relaying it, the amendment should include taking them off, but providing the opportunity for them to use them as and when
it's necessary.
There's a good as and when it's necessary for you to use them. If you say it should be used by the ministers to the same way, I agree. But the president and the vice president, they certainly, because of safety, their security is very, very important. In this country, we saw what happened to President Kufuor.
Right.
At the junction, the Opebia. You remember?
Right. When a car ran
onto
his specific vehicle.
He was just lucky that the vehicle was bulletproof. Now, you can never tell. Look at what happened to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
So the president, the vice president, their security is our collective responsibility. So equally, ministers of states and members of parliament, their safety and security is our collective responsibility. But that is not to say that when certain privileges are extended to them, they should abuse. So a fantastic point that we can have it, there should be a process by which you can ask and provide justification why they should assist you to be able to meet certain, responsibilities with regards to the difficulties and time. But as to whether the speaker was aware
or not,
because I realized he said that, look, the workload of parliament are just enormous. The speaker is engaged in a lot of issues. Even we, who are members of parliament, sometimes you are part of a decision on the floor, and then people raise it until you have to go and check. Because a day you can have about 20, 30 issues you discuss. So imagine a day, 2 days, 3 days, 1 week, 3 weeks, months. So naturally you would have some of this difficulty. So if the speaker said he was unaware and that he has actually cross-checked and he was unaware, I think that he was saying it genuinely, of course, without trying to
make it look like
but once it is done on him and the information is provided, the speaker would agree. Because I remember on several occasions, this thing I'm not aware, but I'll check. When he checked, he says, look, I didn't know that this decision was. And again, if the laying was done, because the pre-laying is referred to an appropriate committee, let's say subsidiary and legislation, it's not everybody will be aware until it is laid
on the floor.
On the day that the thing may be laid, you may not even be in parliament. Sometimes when you see what happens in parliament, you find that empty seats, maybe people may be on committees. And that's why I raised the issue of quorum. Remember yesterday, I had to even ensure we aborted seats because I felt that government brings in their businesses. They can't be relying on those of us who have left our constituency, come there, and they are not there, for certain things to be done. So if a member of parliament wasn't there and something happened in parliament, it's most likely that maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, when you ask him, he or she may not remember such a thing.
But clearly, if these new additions were done at the committee level,
exactly.
No, you see, perhaps they may have the chair of the subject legislative committee may have good justification for undertaking such an exercise. Let me just find out from you as Member of Parliament, first Member of Parliament for Nandong, and a Member of Parliament... Nantong.
Okay,
and then now Member of Parliament for Tamale Central.
Yeah.
I mean, what is the stress level on an MP and the challenges they go through that you may need some privilege as the provision of sirens and dispatch to help you navigate through some of these things?
Well, I think that, like I said, I agree that it's unjustified to have the sirens because people abuse them. Sometimes you are driving around 11 p.m. going home, and then you see someone using siren when the traffic is not used. I have seen that on several occasions. So it's been abused. But under some circumstances where you may need a siren, I've just told you, we suspended sitting, and we are supposed to start sitting at 3 o'clock.
Right.
And I needed to honor this invitation to help provide information for your viewing public and the Ghanaian populace. So I had to come. I drove myself to this place. So assuming that I need to be in Parliament by 3 o'clock, which I should be in chamber by 3 o'clock because we're supposed to come back to continue the sitting at 3. And I know that, okay, my presence in Parliament is equally important. Then I can seek for the police to be able to provide me with what? The
dispatch.
The dispatch, to be able to get there. And that was why I said the point he made for me, I absolutely agree with. But where people have them on their vehicles, abuse them.
That's
and I think
problem.
it is worrying to everybody. And I guess that has occasioned the anger of the public. But who are we?
But your own members, I mean, this morning I've heard some members of Parliament, Rosin Dafiameko, was in favor of this new provision. I've listened to others like Okujeto Ablaka, and then the minority caucus actually, there's a statement signed by the leader taken against it and actually demanding a withdrawal, which has been done already. Yeah. So even when something has been put together for their own benefits, you disagree.
Well, that is why it is Parliament. It is a house of debate, a house of issues. I mean, people would have reasons why they are against it. It's just like the car loan thing, you remember? Some people felt that it ought to have been taken off. Some people also felt that, look, considering the circumstances, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity to certain MPs. I think that the debate is important, but what is critical is that we are representing people. So at any point in time, we must take decisions based on what is largely acceptable by the public or by the people we represent. You may have justifiable reasons why you think that this thing should be there, but once the public says no, maybe perhaps if proper information, education was provided, or information was provided to the public, why the subsidiary and legislative committee thought it wise to add MPs and judges, maybe perhaps the public would have been very appreciative. But once you don't do that, and you just did, I mean, it would occasion...
Perhaps we'll have another discussion to probe why everything about Parliament is met with resistance. There was the proposal to have a new chamber resisted. It didn't take off. Now this particular one. Is it the case that MPs themselves are their own enemies, or Parliament as an institution has not done enough to project the work of MPs and protect them? So we'll have that discussion later. But I'd like to thank you so much for coming, because you're rushing back to Parliament. Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, Murtala Mohammed. Now we'll take a short break here on the Ponana. Akwada, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Perhaps I'll give you just 30 seconds, and then your 30 seconds. All right, I'm told to move on because the Deputy Minister also is in the studio. We'll have another discussion on this matter. When we return, President Akufo-Addo's led MPP government since assumption of office promised to regularize small-scale mining in a bid to sanitize the sector of illegal miners and to protect the environment. How far is the government doing on that? We'll have a thorough discussion on this matter when we return from this break. Stay right here. This is The Pulse.